Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and welcome back to day number 10 of the 25 days of Bucsmas. 25 days talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I told you guys we were going to have 2 days packed into one today because it's been a really busy week, just point blank simple as that. So we do have the drawer here for day number 10. In the last one, we talked about Tristan Wirfs, again, adding to the really great list we've had of players already. So I'm going to be very intrigued to see who we got here on day number 10. And for day number 10 of the 25 days of Bucsmas, we are going to be talking about Tampa Bay Buccaneers safety Antoine Winfield Jr. So guys, without further ado, let's talk about it. I will say it is pretty cool that we got Antoine Winfield Jr. right after Tristan Wirfs, because Antoine Winfield Jr. was selected in the second round of the Buccaneers 2020 NFL Draft, the round right after Tristan Wirfs. So I do think it is pretty cool that we got Antoine Winfield Jr. literally the next day after Tristan Wirfs. It falls in order in this series as it did in the NFL Draft. But talking about Antoine Winfield Jr., this guy is great. Not just as a player, but as a human being. And I know I've been saying that for absolutely everybody in this series, but what I love about Antoine Winfield Jr. is the swagger that he brings with him to this Buccaneers defense. And a lot of people have talked about the Buccaneers secondary in terms of their confidence levels, and all these other different types of things. I think Antoine Winfield Jr. fits right in to what the Buccaneers secondary has in terms of confidence, in terms of belief in themselves. I think Winfield Jr. fits right into that mold, and he should, right? I mean, the guy is the son of a legendary, defensive back in the NFL, Antoine Winfield Sr., who was great for many years of his career. AWJ got to learn from him his entire life. He was trained to be a defensive back in the NFL. He was watching film when he was a little kid with his dad. So I think it's safe to say that AWJ was born to be a defensive back in the league, right? And I remember when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafted him, in that 2020 NFL draft, I was so happy with the pick. A lot of people were. Everybody thought that this was an absolute steal, and it's not hard to understand why. Antoine Winfield Jr. still, in my opinion, was a first-round talent guy. The Buccaneers essentially got 2 first-round draft picks in that 2020 NFL Draft with Winfield Jr. and Wirfs, and it's amazing that the NFL let that happen, because ever since Winfield Jr. has joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's been great. He has been able to, for the most part, be a secure tackler for this team, a great coverage guy, just a do-it-all safety, a ball hawk, if you will. Again, something he probably picked up from his dad. And, it's been great. The guy has been thrown into a, not a hard situation early on, but a lot of responsibility early on, right? Being a starting defensive back, basically from the start of your rookie year, is not an easy situation to be in, especially given the circumstances of the NFL the past couple of years, where guys were not getting a lot of practice time, were not getting a lot of snaps, I guess you could say, in the overall grand scheme of things. It was a tough situation to be in, and overall Winfield Jr. and Wirfs as well have stepped up to the plate and have become really solid starters on this team. And, much like in the case of Wirfs, like I talked about in the last video, it's exciting for the future. I want Winfield Jr. to spend as much of his career as possible with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because I feel he is the future of the Buccaneers secondary, which is really young right now. Yes, you have guys like Carlton Davis, like Jamel Dean, like Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jordan Whitehead, Mike Edwards, but Winfield Jr., I think, is going to be a guy that is going to stay around, near the longest out of all of those guys that I just listed, because of what he offers you. He can play as a slot cornerback. He can play, I believe, both safety positions. He is, again, a do-it-all safety that gives you so much versatility, gives you so much just overall great play wherever you put him along a defense. That is going to be something that increases his not just overall responsibility, but his overall ability, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. So, if Todd Bowles stays the defensive coordinator for a good while, maybe he gets promoted to head coach, whatever it may be, whoever the defensive coordinator is, that's my point, will enjoy having a player of the caliber of Antoine Winfield Jr. I'll tell you this, going back to, I believe it was the draft that Donovan Smith was selected in. I remember there was a player that was selected the pick right before Donovan Smith was selected back in that NFL draft. I can't remember who the player was at the time, but I remember he was selected one pick before the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were selecting. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did end up getting a very good player in Donovan Smith, but I remember I was so heartbroken because I know it was a secondary player. I want to say it was Jamal Adams or something along those lines. It probably wasn't. If I do remember, I'll post it in the comment section below. But I remember having the same thoughts with Antoine Winfield Jr. in the most recent NFL draft. I was hoping, begging that he could fall to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I was so scared that a repeat was going to happen of what happened back then in the 2015 NFL draft. But thankfully, that did not happen. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were able to get their guy in AWJ, and everything worked out, which was great. This is one of my favorite picks the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made. Let's just say in the second round, because there's so many good picks in, say, the first round. But this is, one of my favorite post-first round draft picks the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made in such a long time. I think it's great that Antoine Winfield Jr. is on this team right now. I was happy with the pick, and I'm so happy with what the future holds for the Buccaneers secondary, right? We've already talked about a guy like Carlton Davis, who's still my hashtag #1 corner. With Antoine Winfield Jr., he's still my hashtag #1 safety. And he has got a great career ahead of him. Already in his second year, he's made such an impact on the Buccaneers defense. And I think that impact will continue for a good long while here with this team. So, yeah, guys, that's it. Those are my thoughts on Antoine Winfield Jr. and what he's done for the Buccaneers already and what the future holds for him, which I feel is a very, very bright future at that. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts about AWJ down in the comment section below. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on, what the future holds for the Buccaneers secondary with Antoine Winfield Jr. and the growth of his career. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.